Aging is often seen as a quiet phase of life, one where people assume the elderly have everything they need. The common belief is that by the time someone reaches their later years, they should be at peace, having lived a full life. But what if I told you that many elderly people secretly long for things they never voice? What if their biggest desires are the ones that slip past our awareness, hidden behind polite smiles and quiet moments of solitude? Think about this. Have you ever seen an elderly person staring out of a window, lost in thought? Have you noticed how their face brightens up when someone unexpectedly calls or visits? Have you ever felt like there was something they wanted to say but chose not to? Aging brings wisdom, but it also brings silence. Many elderly people have spent their entire lives providing for others, raising children, building careers, and contributing to their communities. They were once the strong ones, the caregivers, the pillars of support. But as they grow older, the world seems to speed up while they slow down, and in that gap, their needs are often overlooked. But just because they stop asking doesn't mean they stop wanting. The truth is, elderly people still long for connection, touch, purpose, and love. They just hesitate to express it, fearing they might be seen as needy or burdensome. Today, we're diving deep into the things elderly people secretly want but won't ask for. And trust me, some of these will surprise you. You might just realize that a small gesture from you could make all the difference in their lives. Before we begin, take a moment to reflect. Is there an elderly person in your life, maybe a grandparent, a neighbor, or even a parent who might be feeling unseen? If so, this video is for you. And if this topic resonates with you, consider subscribing to this channel. Your support helps us bring more insightful content like this. Drop a comment below if any of these points remind you of someone you love, or if you've ever seen these silent wishes in an elderly person. Now let's get started. Number 1, the need for deep, meaningful conversations. We live in a world where quick texts and social media interactions have replaced deep, face-to-face conversations. But for elderly people, meaningful conversations are a lifeline. As we grow up, we naturally shift our attention to our own busy lives, careers, relationships, and personal responsibilities. Calls to our parents or grandparents become shorter, visits become less frequent, and when we do talk, conversations tend to be transactional. Have you eaten? Did you take your medicine? How's your health? While these questions come from a place of love, they don't fulfill the deep emotional need for connection. A Harvard study on aging and happiness found that people who engage in meaningful conversations, especially as they grow older, report higher levels of well-being and lower rates of depression. Simply put, talking about what truly matters keeps the mind sharp and the heart full. Take the story of Mr. Johnson, an 82-year-old retired teacher. Every morning he sits on his porch with a cup of tea, watching the world go by. His children are grown, and while they check in on him occasionally, their conversations are brief. What Mr. Johnson truly craves is someone to sit down and ask about his past, his dreams, his regrets, the lessons life has taught him. He has decades of wisdom bottled up inside, waiting for someone to listen. But no one ever asks. The next time you visit an elderly loved one, ask them about their childhood, their first love, or the proudest moment of their life. You'd be amazed at the stories they have to tell. And if you've ever done this, drop a comment below and share the most surprising story you've heard from an elderly loved one. And if you're enjoying this so far, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps spread awareness about these often overlooked needs. Number 2, physical affection, the power of a simple touch. As people age, they often experience a significant decrease in physical touch. Spouses pass away, children grow up, and casual physical interactions like hugs, handshakes, or even a simple pat on the back become rare. But human touch remains a fundamental need throughout life. A study published in the journal Psychosomatic Medicine found that physical touch releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, and promotes emotional well-being. The lack of touch, on the other hand, can lead to feelings of isolation and even physical decline. Think about Mrs. Thompson, a widowed woman in her late 70s. Her husband of 50 years passed away 5 years ago, and since then, her life has become quieter. She still gets occasional calls from her children and grandchildren, but she rarely sees them in person. What she misses the most isn't just conversation, it's the simple physical connection of a hug, the feeling of someone holding her hand, or the warmth of a loved one sitting beside her. One day, her granddaughter visits and, instead of just saying hello from a distance, she sits next to Mrs. Thompson, holds her hand, and gently strokes it while they talk. In that small moment, Mrs. Thompson feels something she hasn't felt in a long time: comfort, closeness, and love. Physical touch isn't just about affection, it's about reassurance, connection, and a sense of belonging. Don't underestimate the power of small gestures. If you have an elderly loved one, take a moment to hold their hand, give them a hug, or even offer a gentle touch on their shoulder. These seemingly small acts of love can make a world of difference. And if this resonates with you, hit that like button. It helps spread awareness about this silent but powerful need. Number 3, the desire to feel useful and needed. One of the most heartbreaking things about aging is the gradual loss of a sense of purpose. For decades, elderly individuals spent their lives working, raising families, contributing to their communities, and solving problems. They were needed, they were relied upon. But as they grow older, that sense of usefulness fades. They retire, their children become independent, and society often treats them as if they no longer have much to offer. But here's the truth: just because someone is old doesn't mean they stop wanting to contribute. Elderly people still have wisdom, skills, and experience that are incredibly valuable, yet they rarely get the opportunity to share them. Take Mr. Rodriguez, a retired carpenter. He spent over 50 years building homes, crafting furniture, and teaching apprentices. But now, in his late 80s, he sits alone in his house most days. His hands, once strong and skilled, are now idle. He longs to teach his grandchildren how to carve wood, to share the knowledge that took him a lifetime to master. But he never asks, because he doesn't want to intrude or seem like a burden. Or think about Mrs. Patel, a former school teacher. She loved shaping young minds, inspiring students to dream big. But now, no one comes to her for advice. She watches her grandchildren struggle with homework, yet no one asks her for help. She has so much wisdom to give, but no one thinks to ask. Imagine how much joy they'd feel if someone simply said, "Grandpa, can you teach me how to fix this?" Or, "Grandma, what do you think I should do about this problem?" These small gestures don't just acknowledge their knowledge, they give them back their sense of importance. So if you have an elderly person in your life, find ways to make them feel needed. Ask for their advice, involve them in activities, and remind them that their contributions still matter. And if this reminds you of someone you know, drop a comment below and share a story about an elderly person whose wisdom or skills impacted you. Let's celebrate the value they bring to our lives. And while you're here, don't forget to like this video. It helps more people realize the silent needs of the elderly. Number 4, the need for a change in routine and new experiences. It's easy to assume that elderly people are set in their ways, that they prefer routine and don't like change. But in reality, many of them secretly crave new experiences. They just don't voice it. Think about how exciting life is when you're young. You explore new places, meet new people, and try new things. But as people age, life often shrinks into a small, predictable cycle. The same chair, the same TV shows, the same routine day after day. This repetition can lead to boredom, frustration, and even depression. Studies show that novel experiences, like learning something new or visiting new places, can help keep the brain sharp and improve overall well-being in older adults. In fact, researchers at the University of Texas found that when elderly individuals engaged in mentally stimulating activities, they experienced significant cognitive improvements. Take Ms. Eleanor, an 83-year-old woman who had always dreamed of seeing the ocean. She spent her life raising 5 children and never had the time or money to travel. Now she sits by her window watching travel documentaries, imagining what it would feel like to walk on a beach. But she never tells anyone. She doesn't want to seem unrealistic or demanding. Or consider Mr. Hassan, a retired mechanic who always wanted to learn how to paint. He spends his days watching art tutorials online, fascinated by the process. But when his family asks what he wants for his birthday, he shrugs and says, nothing. Deep down, he'd love a set of paints and someone to take a class with, but he never asks. Elderly people still have dreams. They still want to experience new things. They just assume it's too late, or they feel like asking would be selfish. So if you have an elderly loved one, help them break the monotony. Take them on a small adventure, a day trip, a new restaurant, a new hobby. Encourage them to try something different. You'd be surprised how much joy it can bring. And if you've ever helped an elderly person step outside their routine and do something exciting, drop a comment below and share the experience. Let's inspire each other to bring joy to those who deserve it the most. And don't forget, if this video is opening your eyes to the hidden desires of the elderly, hit that like button. It helps more people recognize the needs we often overlook. A final reflection on what the elderly truly want. At the heart of it all, what elderly people truly want is to feel valued, seen, and loved. Aging is a journey filled with silent struggles, and too often these struggles go unnoticed. But today we have the power to change that. If you have an elderly person in your life, start today. Give them a call, sit with them, hold their hand, ask about their past, make them feel important, because one day we will all be in their shoes, and we will hope for the same kindness. And if this video resonated with you, let's keep this conversation going. Leave a comment below with one thing you've learned from an elderly person in your life. Hit that like button so more people can see this message. Subscribe for more videos that shed light on the overlooked realities of aging. Thank you for watching, and remember, small actions can make a world of difference.